So how are atoms held together in molecules? They are held together by chemical bonds. And these chemical bonds arise from attractions between charged particles. Opposite charges attract, and so electrons and protons that are the building blocks of the atoms are attracted to each other and cause the atoms to be bonded together. So we can divide chemical bonds into two broad groups, ionic and covalent. So ionic bonds occur between metals and nonmetals. And I'll just tell you right now, in Chem 1A we lie to you sometimes. It's just sort of simplifying lies. So just be aware. Ionic bonds occur between metals and nonmetals. And these involve the transfer of electrons from one atom to another. When the metal interacts with the nonmetal, it loses electrons and it becomes a positively charged cation. The nonmetal gains electrons and becomes a negatively charged anion. Now we have two oppositely charged particles and they're attracted to each other. And the attraction between those opposite charges is the ionic bond. The solid phase of an ionic compound is composed of a lattice, a three-dimensional array of these alternating cations and anions. It's a little bit like putting a magnetic building toy together, and you have to alternate the metal pieces with the magnet pieces to make a structure. Here we have the formation of an ionic compound, table salt. Here's sodium metal and chlorine gas. Both of these are very toxic, but when they're combined, they form table salt, which we sprinkle on our food all the time, right? Toxic at high levels, but so is water and so is oxygen. So here we have the metal atoms, and a neutral sodium atom has 11 electrons. In the process of this chemical reaction, it's going to transfer an electron. Here's a chlorine atom. It's neutral, it has 17 electrons. It's going to accept that electron and become a negative, an anion. So now we have chloride ion and sodium ion, and they are oppositely charged and are attracted to each other. And so they will attract each other like magnets, and they'll form this grid of alternating positive and negative ions. And that arrangement is not just two-dimensional, it happens in 3 dimensions. Any questions? Covalent bonds occur between two or more nonmetals. So ionic bonds is between a metal and a nonmetal. Covalent bonds are between two or more nonmetals. And instead of a transfer of electron, this is sharing of electrons. So by sharing some electrons, the two atoms are bonded together. Covalently bound atoms compose a molecule, and that molecule is a unit unto itself, unlike the ionic compound. Let's go back and look at that real quick. In this ionic compound, it's just this continuous 3-dimensional array. There are not specific sodium and chlorine units within that. You could think of this as being one giant molecule, right? But each of these salt crystals has a different number of ions in it. Whereas when we make a molecule, each molecule is the same. It's a discrete unit. Covalently bonded compounds are also called molecular compounds. And down here we just have an illustration of how the sharing of an electron bonds these atoms together. So here we have the nuclei, and if they're sharing this electron, if the shared electron is off to the side, that's not going to really pull those nuclei together. The lowest potential energy, the most stable, is going to be if the electron is shared between the two. If the electron is over here, that's also not going to maximize the attraction. So the most stable form is when the shared electron is between, and that holds those two atoms together.